Hello and welcome to another Daz3d tutorial. In this one I'm going to be talking about 4 ways that you can get more realistic renders. This is one of the most common questions that I get, is how to make my renders look more lifelike or more photoreal. So I'm going to show you 4 ways that you can do that. The first one is to be sure that you select the correct models. First and foremost, you want to use the highest quality models that you can find. Unfortunately, high quality models can tend to be a little on the expensive side, but generally speaking, you get what you pay for. So the more expensive models will be a little bit higher quality most of the time. That being said, there are some cheaper models that you can get that are still pretty high quality. Another thing to do when selecting your models is to be sure you select a model that's set for lifelike design. For instance, if I go to my figures folder, I'm going to go to people and female, and I've got 3 folders under there: fantasy, sci-fi, real world, and stylized. So if I go to stylized, most of these are going to be like cartoon or anime kind of characters. Some of them you can get realistic textures on, but most of them are going to be very smooth and plasticky and, for lack of a better word, perfect. And in order to make your models look real, perfection isn't going to work. That's going to make them look very artificial, but you want to use models that have blemishes and imperfections, and those are the things that are going to make your models look more real. So if I go to real world, now these are models of varying quality, some very high quality, some not so high quality, but all of them are made for realism. So I'm going to go to one that I've used before that I know is a very high quality model, and that is Bridget 8. So I'm going to drop her into my scene and get her customized real quick. So when I zoom in really close on this figure, you can see one of the reasons that I like her so much is because her skin has imperfections. She has freckles and blemishes and other things that serve to add to the realism of her skin texture. The next thing to do is to be sure that you use the correct textures and shaders. So if I double click on my Bridget and go to materials, I'm going to go to Iray. Be sure you go to Iray, and then feminine, and then I'm going to find her folder, Bridget 8. And you can apply all of these different materials that are also going to make her customize her. Some of them are going to make her look better, some of them just different. She should come with all of her maps loaded, but just in case they don't, I like to go ahead and double click that at the very beginning just to make sure that I've got a good base to work with. And after that, it's just a matter of choosing the things that you want to add. You can change eye color for most of them. She's got several different makeup options, lip gloss. Normal maps I normally turn on. Some of them you can tell a difference, but some of them you can't. It just depends upon the model. And I need to research that more, but I think that that is more for if you're exporting your model for use in other software. I think that that has some benefits to it. Some of them also have translucency settings. Generally speaking, low translucency is going to make your figure look a little bit more pale, whereas a medium or darker translucency is going to make them look more tan. So if I go to low translucency, then you'll be able to see she's a lot fairer skinned. Still has the same kind of blemishes and imperfections on her skin. And then I can go to medium translucency, and she's just a little bit darker, very subtle effect. And then the default translucency is where she began, where she's more dark complected, a little bit more tan. And that was just a matter of personal preference. But customizing your character that way will also make them look a lot more lifelike and realistic. Some of them will also have other maps in addition to the normal maps. One of them to look for is called a bump map. And a bump map can make things look rough textured, like you can see like tiny bumps on the skin, which again just adds to the realism by creating little tiny imperfections that make your characters look a little bit more human. And I'll show you one more thing that you can do with textures also, is that you don't even have to use the textures that belong for that character in particular. So to illustrate that, I'm going to delete my Bridget and I'm going to load in another character, a character that I really like, but she's a little bit lower quality model. Give me just one moment to load that in. Alright, now this character is Kana from Renderosity.com. Also, I'm going to put links to all of the products that I use in the description below, so please check those out, particularly the ones from Renderosity. I am an affiliate with them, so if you click one of the links below and buy anything from them, I get a small commission off of that. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that'll help support my channel, and I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. So for her, she has a few fewer options than our Bridget did, but still some great ones, so I'm going to go ahead and customize her. But as I'm doing that, you can already see that her skin is a lot more smooth and a little bit artificial looking. So I can kind of cover some of that up by customizing her makeup options. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and that will add to her realism a little bit. So as you can see, she has bump maps. So she has one for close distance and one for far distance. So I'm not sure if hers is applied by default, but I'm going to turn on that bump map real quick and see if we can see a difference. So as that's loading in, I can't really see a huge difference with the bump map loaded in, but if I render this at a very high resolution and zoomed in or did an extreme close-up, I might be able to tell. But the main thing that I wanted to illustrate with this character is how you can apply materials from a different character in order to get a more realistic look. So I'm going to go back into my materials like I did before. Let's make sure Kana is selected. And just like we did before, I'm going to go to Ire, Feminine, and I'm going to go to Bridget again. And this time I'm going to select Bridget All Maps. So now I know that Bridget maps aren't loaded in by default because this is an entirely different character preset. So I'm going to select Bridget All Maps, and that's going to apply Bridget's skin maps to this character. So now you can see she still has the same facial structure that she did before, but she's got the same freckles, blemishes, and imperfections that Bridget had, which is giving her a lot more realistic look. So when doing this, your mileage may vary a little bit. Some materials work very well with other models, and some work less well. So if you ever get one that looks a little weird, it's okay. It might just not work with that character. It's probably not anything that you did, but you can just pick another one and move on from there. So just like we did before, we can adjust the translucency if we want to. We can even do the makeup options. There we go. And that one, now with that applied, she looks a lot more realistic than she did before. In addition to the built-in textures, you can also use third-party shaders. I've had varying luck with these. I've only got a couple of shaders right now, and the ones that I use, I tend to use the more artificial shaders. I like the ones that give like a cartoony look or kind of a comic book look. But there are some realistic shaders. I'm going to post a link below, or you can click on the screen here now to check out one of my other videos on applying shaders. I'm not going to go into huge depth on that in this video, since I've already done a couple of videos on it, but I will show you some of the end results real quick. I did some test renders earlier, and I'll show you what they look like. Alright, so here's a close-up render that I did of the same model. This is Kana with her default textures applied. And if I go to the next one, so this is one using a third-party shader. In my opinion, this one isn't necessarily better or worse, but just different. I kind of like her original shader better, if I go back to that one. But it's a little bit darker, a little bit more flush. I kind of like it better. And then this is another shader that I have, and this one's a little bit more artificial looking, a little glossier, and it's a little bit too artificial for my taste. I would probably use one of the other two if I were going to actually use this in a render. And then this is a close-up with the Bridget skin applied, the one that I did just a moment ago. And then I've got one more from a different model named Sinisa, which is one of my very, very favorite Daz models. And again, because of the imperfection, she's got a couple of scratches and scars, again, that just really add to the realism of that figure. Alright, and the third thing that you can do to improve the look of your renders is to use adequate lighting. This is probably the biggest mistake that I see people make, is not using good lighting. And if you have a really, really dimly lit scene, then your models aren't going to look as good. You're not going to be able to see the textures. You're not going to be able to see the imperfections, and you're going to get also noise, like white noise in your renders, which is going to make them look way, way, way worse. So be sure to check out one of my lighting tutorials. I've done several on those, on how to do good lighting, but that is probably the biggest thing that you can do to improve the quality of your renders, especially if you're already using high quality models. Alright, and the fourth and final tip that I'm going to give you is to use a quality rendering engine. So Daz comes with a couple of different rendering engines preloaded. One of them is 3D Delight or 3D Light. Not sure how you say that. But the other one is iRay. So if you use one of the included engines, use iRay 100% of the time. iRay is a very, very quality rendering engine. We're really fortunate that they include that one for free. It's amazing. All of these renders that I've done have been done in iRay. But if you want to try something different, there are some third-party rendering engines that you can use. The two that I know of are Octane Render and Reality. I've played around a little bit with both of those on the demo modes. They are, in my opinion, extremely difficult to use, at least getting started with them. I never could come up with a quality product with the Reality demo, and I've got the free version of Octane Render, which has most of the features and even comes with some included textures and shaders that you can use with your models. But I've had varying degrees of success, and it takes a long time, a lot of effort to get up and running, even more so than just using the built-in Daz rendering engines. But I did do a render earlier today. Let me pull that one up real quick. This is actually the only time I've been able to get a decent render with Octane Render, and it's still not 100%. This is the render that I did with Octane earlier. This is Arcana model again. I had a little bit of a mishap with her eyes that I couldn't fix. That's why they look really dark, because she has no eye textures right now. And I can't really zoom in more than this without losing a lot of quality. Since I'm using the free version, I'm locked to a resolution of, I think it's 720 by 480. I can try to zoom that in, but again, it's going to start to look really pixely and rough, and you get a lot of noise in there, so it really looks a little bit better when it's further off. But again, I've seen some people come up with some incredible looking renders, very, very realistic and very lifelike, by using one of those two rendering engines. So if you really want the highest quality renders, then you might want to, spend the bucks to get those. They aren't that expensive. I think that Reality is a $50 flat fee one time, and it works as a plugin with Daz Studio. Octane Render, I think that you have to pay for it. Again, there is a free version, but you're locked in with you're locked out of some of the more advanced features, and you're locked into a lower resolution with it. And that one, I believe that you pay monthly. Last time I checked, I think it was either it was like $30 or $40 per month US. But look into that and download the free version. You might like it. Like I said, it takes a long time to get up and running, but they have really good lighting presets and some really good materials that you can use. And again, if you put the time in it, you can get some very, very realistic renders with those. But that'll be about all for this video. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, of course, and hit the notification bell so you never miss one of my new videos. And also, I'll put links to all of the products that I used in the description below. And if you use any of the products from Renderosity, that's a great way to support my channel. I get a small commission from every purchase somebody makes when they follow one of those links. And I'm going to start trying to do content again about on a weekly basis. So check back, and I should have some more content for you next week. And that will do us for this one. Goodbye.